We are really very fortunate to be able to start out on a very high note with Senator Udall. Senator Udall has been a leader in the Congress on technology issues, and particularly on energy technology issues. And it's my great pleasure to welcome Senator Udall here today.
That would be great. Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the great state of Colorado, the Centennial State. We were chartered as a state in 1876, hence the Centennial State. I'm loath, as Tom is, to interrupt what's already beginning to be a raucous and energetic evening. You all are catching up, exchanging ideas, getting ready for what I know will be a tremendous conference. And I want to just urge all of you to dig in, to not give up on us policymakers in Washington, D.C. I know many of you have roots there. I would tell you, after 10 years in the House and now in my third year in the Senate, I've never quite seen the Congress of the United States as dysfunctional as it appears. I think this too shall pass. In my worst moments, I remember Churchill's great analysis of us Americans. You remember he said you can count on the Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. And I think we all feel like we're probably in that place right now. If any of you have anything more elegant on than what I'm wearing, you're overdressed, because this is considered a tuxedo in the mountains of Colorado. The other little advice I want to give you is that and I have to be careful because I have gotten in trouble in the past in saying it this way. I was going to tell you all to drink as much as you possibly could, but by that I mean H2O. You ought to be drinking a quart of water per beer or equivalent of alcohol, and that's the old mountain guide in me, wanting you to feel good, to really be able to take advantage of what Aspen has to offer. Tom, I hope you're not going to have people sitting in rows listening to speeches for the 2 days that you're here. I hope people are going to get out and hike and now I'm undercutting the great work you're going to do here. There'll be some expectations. There will be a couple of pop quizzes, I'm sure. But let me thank Tom and his team too for bringing together such. Yeah, let's give Tom and Amy and everybody a great round of applause. I don't want to go on at any great length. I know Tom and I talked about I would be happy to field some questions, or we can go back to consuming the food and the drink. And I know all of you hate the fact that the humidity's low here, and that you're going to have great sleeping weather tonight. But let me just turn serious for maybe a minute or two, if you'll indulge me. It's clear that a mature economy like America's will grow, and that's what we need, frankly. You know, there's nothing that 200,000 to 300,000 new jobs a month wouldn't cure in our psyche right now. But it's clear, based on what you all know and we know when you look at an Econ 101 or 1 or 2 course, you've got to grow an economy that's mature through innovation. You can't go back. And what you all do is take ideas that inventors have generated, that innovators have come up with, and then apply them in a way to create new markets, new products, or new ways of doing business. And it isn't just applicable to IT or energy technologies or medical technologies. We see it in our tourism or hospitality sector here in Colorado. We see it in ag, for example. There are great strides being made. So in sum, what I'm telling you all is that in order for our country to get back its mojo economically, we need you all to continue to innovate and to then advise us as policymakers in Washington, D.C. what we should be doing, and in some cases, Tom, what we shouldn't be doing. I think you all know that, but I'm just holding out a hand, asking you to continue to, when necessary, cajole us, talk sweetly to us, but if you need to beat us around the head and shoulders with a 2x4, I would welcome that as well, because time is wasting. India, China, the Pacific Rim, the Europeans, the Latin Americans, the South Americans, they're all on the march. They're not waiting for us to get our act together. So again, let me stop there, Tom, and if there are a question or two that you all would like to throw my way, I'm happy to field them. Otherwise, let's get back to saying hello to each other. I'll circulate and get to know some of you. But again, welcome to Aspen. come every year, come twice a year. We're really proud to have you here in one of the really wonderful communities in Colorado. Thank you. Thank you very much. Tom, you want? Oh, there's a lone ranger out here. Yeah.
Let me just echo Tom's appreciation for you joining us tonight and spending your time with us. Thank you. This whole mechanism of the sequestration, the defense cuts versus the entitlement cuts,
Yes.
for the super committee, what is your sense of the reality of whether that's going to lead to serious negotiations and a deal by Thanksgiving, or whether there'll be another stare down and all revolving around extension of the Bush tax cuts?
I'm an optimist by nature and also by training. I think I've been a little more optimistic about the super committee's prospects because of what you just outlined. The formulaic cuts are, if not draconian, they're formulaic. And you all are business people. You know it's one thing to say to your CFO, look, just let's do 5% cut across the board, which sounds good and sounds easy, but if you really get into those line items and you get into the key functions and investments in the future, that's not the right way to go about it. So I think that could focus the mindsets of the senators and House members on the super committee. Was it Dr. Johnson said there's nothing like a hanging to focus the mind. In a way, this is a form of a hanging. My only worry is that there are some exits, at least throughout 2012, really when the hammer comes down with the super committee being the meat in between the hammer and the anvil. It's really 2013, Tom, until those cuts would take place. So there's always the potential, as you all know, for us to find a way to push it off and push it off and push it off. And I think, look, that would be such an enormous mistake. I'm a huge Simpson-Bowles fan. I will take a little bit of credit for pushing the President and the administration in late in 09, to create the commission. You know, we had the vote on the floor of the Senate to put a Simpson-Bowles Commission mechanism in place based on a statutory approach, just like the BRAC Commission. Unfortunately, 7 of my colleagues who had co-sponsored the measure, all of them Republicans. I just try not to be a partisan here. This is a purple state, by the way. You've really got to work with all 3 political parties, if you will. But I really think that is the way forward. And the prize with the Simpson-Bowles approach is it lifts our confidence. It shows the world we can make some tough political decisions. I believe the markets would respond. I believe the rest of the world, it has its own problems, would see us suddenly accelerating out in front of them. So I think there's a lot of upsides. And I read Paul Krugman. I appreciate Paul Krugman. But when he pejoratively talks about those of us who are moderates and pragmatists who believe in the confidence fairy, I think there actually is something to the psychology when it comes to business cycles and what you all do. So keep rooting for us, praying for us. The one other opening I'd say I hear some talk about revenues. Of course, the other team says no tax increases, but some of their leadership has left open the potential for tax reform. I'm for that. Let's lower rates. I'm very interested in repatriation. There's some interesting ideas circulating there. But we need you all weighing in because you're the folks creating the jobs and building the future. Tom, if you see somebody that you shouldn't let ask a question, don't call on him. But otherwise,
he's got the right person. He didn't want me to ask a question, that's for sure. Senator Lynn Cohen with Verizon. I was on the Hill myself in the 70s and 80s, and I haven't really lobbied or anything since then. I've been involved in technology policy, but it does seem like it was a little bit different when I was there. We had Howard Baker and Muskie, and there did seem to be a little more willingness to try to get things done. In your view, what are the things contributing to the kinds of, let me also say, I don't think it's all that dysfunctional. I do think that to some extent politics has to play out the way it does sometimes to get to a decision point. So to me, it's not all that messy. It's just, but I think people outside Washington see that. But in your view, what are the things that are contributing to the dysfunctional aspects of what's going on? And is anything the industry, especially the high-tech sector, can do to help make the process work better?
I think you all can continue to get on our doorsteps, particularly the leaders in both caucuses, in both houses, and just say, come on, we need some more leadership. You've got to rebuild some trust. I do think you're right up to a point. I think it would all help us to turn off the cable TV channels, and I urge Coloradans to do that. Actually, one of the good news stories, Tom, this month I've been home, is you travel Colorado, and to some extent people are over us, and they're not letting us drag them down, and they're just out making their communities better. And I've been in a lot of settings. I wouldn't bore you with the stories, but I don't want to go off on that road. But Republicans, Democrats, public employees, private business people working together, improve schools, improve our environment, improve our tourism industry, just story after story. So I've actually been invigorated by coming home. But I think what's worrisome to me, and you all feel this, is there's almost no other legislating been going on. In the good old days of 6 and 8 and 10 years ago, when we had the big Iraq war debate, we were working on energy policy. We were working on education policy. We were working on public lands policy here in my state. We're not doing any of that. It seems like it's a fool's errand to even put the energy in. That's one of the promises I made to myself when I go back next month. I'm going to go sit down with Lisa Murkowski. We've got some great ideas on energy. I'm going to begin to plant those seeds and ignore the kind of distressing environment we've been in. The Onion, which you all see sometimes, it had a couple of great headlines, and then I'll specifically answer your question. Debt ceiling deal required tough concessions by both Democrats and Democrats alike. So you Democrats know that narrative. And then Obama turns 50 despite Republican opposition. But to specifically your question, I think if I was king for a week, I would get Simpson Bowles passed, and one of the next things I do, I would create a much more competitive process for House seats. And I say that as somebody who represented a somewhat competitive House district. I think if you put in place much more competitive House races, you wouldn't have the extremes of both parties determining who comes out of those primaries. And I think you'd have a House of Representatives that was more focused on problem solving and less focused on generating headlines. I would do something about the way in which we spend all of our time raising money. And I know there's a threshold there where, as you all as entrepreneurs and business people have an idea, you have to go sell it. You've got to raise capital. I think politicians, Tom, ought to be able to have to do the same thing. But the time we spend raising money is just it's a time that I think we all at some point become to resent, because we want to work on policy, we want to work on building relations. We'd like to spend more time with our colleagues in Washington, D.C. Those are two ideas that I have, but I'd end with this. You're right. This is one of those moments in history where there are big philosophical differences, and that's what our system is designed to face. And there will be a reckoning. It may be the public the public will be the ultimate referee in the election next year. Although, one final caveat, Ross Douthat, I know Ross, I always mangle his last name. He writes for the Times. He wrote a great piece in the last 2 weeks talking about each party now this last decade has approached the upcoming election as a chance to put their imprint on our political system for the next generation. Famously, Karl Rove thought that after the 2000-2002 elections. Republicans got their comeuppance in 06 and 08. We thought that after the 08 election. We got our comeuppance in 2010. So I don't know how you apply that, but I think we as policymakers have to be thinking we're going to have to work with the other party in the spirit of some of the most important policies we put in place in this country. Let's quit trying to put our heels on the throats of the other party to the point that they no longer exist. It just isn't going to happen. It's the way our system operates. Those are my thoughts. If you don't like them, I'll change them.
Senator, yeah, you mentioned the magic word, at least for me, which is innovation. And my work is in the healthcare arena. What do you say to people in the administration, and certainly to Governor Sebelius and her staff, who say things like, we can't afford innovation in healthcare? I mean, how do you address something like that?
I don't agree with the Secretary. I didn't know she'd said that. I'd like to know a little bit more, and I will visit with the governor. She's always struck me as somebody who's, and you may disagree, is reasonable, understands that the health care law will need a lot of attention. In fact, the way we maintain quality, create more access, and then get at this cost control, so that's through innovation. So I'm surprised she said that. I'm hoping she meant it in some other way, but it sounds like it's pretty...
Me too.
Yeah, all right. I'd love to follow up with you. Well, this, one more, huh? What do you think? Yeah.
There's a hand back there.
One more.
I'm Harold Felt. I'm with an organization called Public Knowledge, which is something of a consumer protection organization, among other things. And one of the things that has sometimes been a concern has been that the effort to promote innovation and to deregulate industry has sometimes resulted in, at least in our opinion, in sometimes leaving consumers somewhat stranded. And as somebody who has been, I think, very appropriately concerned in a lot of ways with consumer welfare, as well as in promoting innovation, I'd like to ask, how do you think policy ought to strike the balance with regard to consumer protection and, I guess we'd say, giving industry more of a free hand to experiment with things?
Thanks for the easy question. In a way, Tom, that's what this conference is going to consider. That's why I'm glad you're here. And finding that balance is really, you could, there have been histories written about America and our system of capitalism and how that balance is sometimes not really been a balance, and then we found that sweet spot where it exists. But I'm going to leave it there, because I would tell you, though, there's not a formula. And it's not an easy question to answer, but I'm glad you're here, and I would welcome your input and your insights into the decisions that I make as a senator from the state of Colorado. Yeah, thank you all, and truly, it's an honor to have you here. I look forward to your work product, and I'll circulate, and if those of you want to throw some other good questions at me, find me. So thank you again. Thanks again.